Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Pontiac Silverdome, where for the first time in Detroit Pistons history, we're hosting the 1988 NBA Finals. And now, introducing your Eastern Conference champions, the Detroit Pistons. At guard, in his sixth year from Western Michigan University, Walker D. Russell. Also at guard in his first year from LaSalle, Ralph Lewis. At center, in his fifth year from North Carolina State, Jug Nevitt. Also at center, in his 11th year from Washington, James Edwards. At forward, in his second year from Georgia Tech, John Spider Sally. Also at forward, in his second year from Southeast Oklahoma State, Dennis Rodman. And at guard, in his ninth year from Baylor, Vinnie Johnson. And now, ladies and gentlemen, these are your starters. At one of the forwards in his 12th year from Notre Dame, Adrian Dantley. At the other forward in his 8th year from Hampton Institute, Rick Mahorn. At center, in his 8th year from Notre Dame, Bill Wade Beard. And at one of the guards in his 3rd year from McNeese State, Joe Dumars. And at the other guard, in his 7th year from Indiana, your captain, Isaiah Thomas. The head coach of the Detroit Pistons is Chuck Daly. His assistants are Ron Rothstein and Dick Versace. The trainer is Mike Abdenauer.
We the bad boys.
We like a hockey team. Everybody want to see us fight.
Just win, baby, whatever it takes.
When you got a Detroit Pistons uniform on, you got to be proud to wear it. And you just got to have that certain little edge in your system that makes you real special.
On the day I was born, the nurses all gathered round. They gazed in wide wonder at the joy they had found. The head nurse spoke up, said, "Leave this one alone." She could tell right away that I was bad to the bone, bad to the bone, bad to the bone, bad, bad.
If we're gonna be the bad boys, then we gotta act like bad boys. We can use this reputation in two ways. Either we can use it to our advantage, or it's gonna hinder us severely. Lambeer said, okay, we'll be like the Oakland Raiders. You know, the old Oakland Raiders.
Before the Pistons started the 1987-88 season, their reputation preceded them. A stirring image of the gridiron's toughest men. Raider owner Al Davis delighted in the comparison and let the Pistons join the honorary ranks of the Silver and Black, whose motto is commitment to excellence.
Nobody likes us, so I guess you figure, hey, we might as well be. Everybody says we were the Raiders. I don't mind being a Raider, you know, of the NBA.
I kind of like that, you know. At least we've been recognized for something.
Like the Raiders, Detroit sought every possible advantage. A private jet provided sufficient legroom for 7-foot bodies and gave coaches extra time to study videotape, all making life on the road easier. And home was the Pistons' sanctuary. Their faithful congregation filled the Silverdome in record numbers, making Detroit the first franchise ever to draw 1 million fans. But the cavernous Silverdome was filled with more than numbers. Expectations were also at capacity.
We came in with the attitude that we wanted to give back to the Eastern Conference Finals to play against Boston.
Along the way, the Pistons had the finest regular season in team history. Spearheading the charge was Isaiah Thomas, who notched his 7th straight All-Star season. His running mate, Joe Dumars, maintained a low profile, but came up big at both ends of the floor. Sixth man Vinnie Johnson came off the bench and gave nightmares to opposing defenses. Meanwhile, Rick Mahorn gave them bruises as he pounded inside for his most productive year as a Piston. Detroit Stars small forward Adrian Dantley also had a banner year.
AD reaches 20,000 career points with 13 seconds to go in the game.
Other milestones were achieved, like Bill Lambier's growing record as the reigning NBA Iron Man. For a 6th straight season, Bill didn't miss a game while playing with a zest for hard-nosed basketball. Then there were the X Factors. John Sally was a feared competitor at the power positions, while Dennis Rodman was pure electricity on the wing. Both second-year players steadily improved without the effect of a sophomore jinx. Coach Chuck Daly led Detroit to a 5th straight winning year, and in 87-88, the Pistons had a franchise record 54 wins. But the regular season's biggest moment was a win against New Jersey, which clinched a tie in the Central Division.
The Pistons reduced their magic number to 1.
Then they waited for their first division title in 31 years.
No good! Yeah!
Hey, get that sweat, get that shirt, baby. Get that shirt, baby. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. You deserve it, baby. This is a cousin.
How's the t-shirt fit?
Fits good. that champion look good.
That was the first time in the history of Detroit's franchise that they have ever went that far in the playoffs, and we're still a very determined and hungry basketball team.
But in the opening round, Detroit ran into a hungry Bullet team. After 2 Washington losses in Detroit, the Bullets' Jeff and Moses Malone tied up the best-of-5 series. Suddenly, a 2-man show pushed a squad deep with talent to the brink of elimination.
That was the most pressure I've ever experienced because we were supposed to be there.
In a 5th and decisive game, Washington's fancy footwork was no match for Daly's brilliant choreography. The Pistons again looked like division champs. They fed off the Silverdome's energy while Washington was short-circuited by it. Jeff Malone was held to 1 for 12 shooting, while a once tireless Moses looked ready for a summer vacation. By having their 2 big guns silenced, Washington's hopes of an upset disappeared. But they took the Pistons to the limit, testing Detroit's mettle and sharpening them for their next opponent. Fresh from a record-breaking series in Cleveland, Air Jordan then landed in Motown.
The guy literally is embarrassing the league. He's that good. He's a phenomenal player. There isn't anything he can't do. And I watched very carefully the Cleveland series, and I said to myself, we can't let it happen to us. I don't care what we do.
Joe Dumars drew the league's toughest assignment.
Joe is a very knowledgeable basketball player. He understands what needs to be done. But Joe will be the first to tell you that you don't contain a player like Michael Jordan by yourself. You do it with help, a great deal of help. We had 12 players and 3 coaches, all running at Michael Jordan all the time.
With Dumars at the point of attack, the Pistons took away Jordan's effectiveness. It stimulated Detroit's transition game, while Chicago's high-flying fast break was grounded. With Jordan out of the flow, Detroit easily won the opener.
Just about every play down is for him, and that makes it real difficult because you never get to let up, where on other teams you know guys are going to get the ball 10 times in a row. You can help out on defense. You can afford to roam a little bit more, but with him, it's high intensity every time down the court.
The Bulls salvaged game 2, but the Pistons had plans for the Windy City.
We want that piece of court. We want your gym. We want everybody in your gym. We don't want to hear any noise in your gym because it's our gym tonight.
In Chicago, the Pistons continued to press Jordan, reducing his record 45-point average in the opening round to a mere mortal 27 points per game. After winning Game 3, Isaiah squelched a late Bulls rally in the next contest with 9 unanswered points, nailing down a sweep in Chicago.
A dagger in your heart.
You know, when we had Chicago down 3-1, going back home, knowing the great player that Jordan is, we don't want to give him any life, you know, and let's just get it over with while we have this opportunity.
The Pistons won Game 5 behind several outstanding performances. Vinnie Johnson capped a superb series, coming off the bench to lead the team in offensive rebounds. And down the stretch, Bill Laimbeer canned 13 straight, giving the team unexpected time off before their next opponent.
Pistons have now a return trip ticket to the Eastern Conference Finals.
The Pistons rarely experienced good fortune playing in Boston. The Garden was home to 16 world championships, and Detroit had lost on the parquet floor 21 straight times. The splendor of championship banners were reminders of victims past and a gloomy specter to future challengers of Celtic glory. Detroit's most disturbing moments occurred a year ago, and those haunting memories seemed all too fresh. The darkest incident occurred in Game 5, seconds short of grabbing a 3-2 series lead.
Now that's a steal by Bird. Underneath the DJ, lays it in. Right up, 1 second left. What a play by Bird.
After fighting back to force a 7th game, the series' physical play took its toll, and hopes of Detroit's first NBA Finals came crashing to the ground.
Losing last year to Boston was a motivating factor for us. We came into the playoffs this year with a lot of confidence, knowing that we thought we were the best team in the East and we were set to prove it.
In 1988, Lady Luck again favored the Celtics. This time around, they were healthier and determined to test Detroit's claim as one of the NBA's premier teams.
Through their tradition and through their past, they always win. So it's expected for them to win. And when they lose, it's a fluke. And you have to be strong enough in your mind to say that, hey, we can beat this team and we're better than this team, even though everybody is telling us that we're not.
But the sands of time have a way of challenging an aging team. The Celtics were the oldest starting 5 in the league and required nearly 40 minutes from each man. And from the outset, Detroit waged a battle of attrition. The Pistons shuffled in young, fresh bodies and varied defensive assignments. This worked especially well against Larry Bird. By forcing him away from his normal setup, Bird took shots out of frustration and tallied a subpar game. Yet despite all of Detroit's fine work, they trailed at halftime. If Boston could withstand Detroit's great defensive effort, what was Chuck Daly going to do next, especially with Bill Laimbeer's availability in question?
I was really disappointed. I was in the locker room and thought I might be out for the whole series, and I knew we had a chance to win that game. I felt I could be part of it. Fortunately, we have an outstanding bench.
Although the Pistons were without the anchor of their front line, Laimbeer's hustle did not disappear when he was replaced by James Edwards. The 11-year veteran played like a rookie with something to prove. Edwards' enthusiasm carried the Pistons into the fourth quarter when the man they call Zeke took over. He darted past defenders for a 35-point evening and handed out 12 assists along the way. Detroit shocked the Garden faithful with an opening game victory that put an end to the Garden jinx. However, Detroit's new concern was how to patch up their ailing big men.
Rick Mahorn, he was our most valuable player throughout the year. And the doctors were concerned that how much help he would be able to give us once the playoffs started. So that's why we pursued the James Edwards deal.
That's all we talked about when we first acquired him, was how much he could help against Boston. Because we assumed we were going to meet Boston in the playoffs, and we knew we needed one more big post-up player to go at their big front line.
After years of hardship, Edwards was just thankful for the chance to play in the playoffs again.
I thought that's where I'd be, watching the NBA playoffs from the TV. And the coach called me and said, "You're on your way to Detroit, and thanks for playing for us." And I said, "Well, thank you." And, I was like, going to Detroit.
Edwards quickly learned Detroit's hustling style.
I was scrambling for a ball with Dennis Johnson, who I played with in Phoenix, and we were kind of, throwing each other around. We fell on the floor, and Dennis looks at me and said, "Oh, you're fighting just like the rest of those guys now." We just started laughing a little bit, but, it's just part of the game. When you get with those guys and they're playing physical, you just play physical too.
What were the effects of Detroit's opening game win? Was it an indication that the Celtics were vulnerable, or would it be a perfect motivator?
They know this is probably the most important game of the season for them. They can't afford to go 2 down. We look for a terrific effort early in the contest.
Boston quickly got on track by capitalizing on the age-old Celtic fast break. Not only was there life left in those old legs, but Boston showed the bravado to match Detroit in physical play. Once again, they looked like the invincible men of the parquet. Yet they were unable to shake those Pistons. The Piston big men refused to be beaten inside. As a result, opportunities arose for the fast break, where Detroit overwhelmed Boston by a 22-7 margin. Slowly, Detroit gained a fourth quarter lead. Execution was solidly on their side, but luck was not, as Danny Ainge squeaked the Celtics into overtime. If the Boston Garden was planning another stranglehold on the Pistons, Isaiah already planned an escape.
Got clock at 5. Isaiah sideline left, clock at 4, now 3. Tries for a triple. It's through! With 7 seconds left. Isaiah strikes for 3 from downtown. And he has tripled the Pistons ahead, 109-106.
Detroit almost tasted a 2-game lead, while Boston seemed numbed, on the verge of an inconceivable second straight playoff loss at the Garden. There was only enough time for one shot, and even by Celtic standards, they were in need of a miracle. The plan was to free Larry Bird in 3-point range, but the inbounds pass missed the mark. Yet, as they had done the year before, the ghosts of Celtics past were destined to haunt the Pistons.
Hit it! They count it as a 3. 5 seconds to go in the game, and McHale hits a 3.
If McHale touched the line, it was a moot point. Detroit was devastated by only the second three-pointer of Kevin's 8-year career.
That was another fluky example of how we find every way we can to lose some games, especially against Boston. McHale throwing in that 3-pointer was kind of a shock, and we felt we had won the game. We felt we had played hard enough to win the game, but we didn't. We just don't do things the easy way.
Tied 1 game apiece, the Pistons returned home to one of the noisiest crowds in Silverdome history. Fans sensed Boston was beatable on the road, and a hung jury was ready to see them drawn and quartered. The Celtics were far away from their beloved Garden, and now ducking for cover in the Hall of Piston Justice. From the opening moments, Joe Dumars was at the top of his game, And for perhaps the first time in his career, a national audience was taking notice of Detroit's other starting guard. However, that same audience was not surprised by Detroit's feisty coverage, a tactic which frustrated the Celtics and sent foul-troubled Robert Parrish to the sideline. Without Parrish in the middle, Detroit took a halftime lead. And when Robert returned in the third, the Pistons could still do no wrong. But the tide can turn so quickly when the Celtics exploit all their scoring options. After 8 straight losses in the Dome, Boston was looking to steal one away.
Defense, let's go deep!
The Pistons alternated Dantley and Rodman on Larry Bird, hoping their combined quickness would shut down the game's most feared fourth-quarter scorer. Detroit had difficulty scoring down the stretch, but their baskets were timely. The last of Dumar's 29 points snuffed a Celtic run, while Dantley's driving hoop put Boston to bed. And one of the game's all-time greatest scorers was also getting credit for his work on the defensive end.
If they see somebody like me, been in the league 12 years, going out there work hard, they say, well, if AD can do that, I can do that. So I try to be a leader by example.
The Pistons were up 2-1, and critics wondered what was wrong with Boston. The answer was Detroit's defense, which was surrendering less than 100 points per game.
Everybody still thinks we're an offensive basketball team. They don't give our defense any credit. So be it. That's to our advantage, because let them keep mumbling to themselves how they're missing open shots, and we'll win the series.
But it was Chuck Daly who was mumbling to himself on Memorial Day as the Pistons missed 21 straight shots.
Disgusting. We were doodle. I don't know. Well, when you're a little kid, you know what doodle is? Yeah. Doodle, cocky. That's what we were.
The gang that couldn't shoot straight still had a chance to pull it out, but ironically, accuracy would now do them in.
Here's the loop to Sally, and the basket is good. No basket.
What happened is Adrian Dantley's pass just goes right into the basket.
Detroit fought down to the final seconds, but fell inches short of grabbing a 3-1 series lead.
Short on the shot. Oh, the rebound.
That looked like it could have been goaltending by Parrish.
It wasn't. The game is over, and the Celtics have won, and the Boston Celtics have come through again.
Game 5 returned to Boston, where the Pistons were apparently on the ropes. Though they outplayed the Celtics in 3 of 4 games, the series was tied 2 games apiece. A veteran team was not going to make things easy for Detroit, since they once again had to win on the parquet and forget all about those fateful final seconds of last year's 5th game.
The experience from Boston the year before, and the fact that the media kept it alive, never let us forget it. It was like, you know how they say time heals all wounds? It doesn't if you keep reopening the wound.
When you play the Celtics, they bring out the best in you and the worst in you. They make you a better person and a better player if you're going to go through them.
We felt strongly that we were the better team and that we could beat them. And we weren't about to go up there and give it up without a fight.
But unlike any time during the playoffs, the Celtics gleamed with old luster. They comfortably marched to a sizable halftime lead, mixing textbook basketball with impromptu creativity.
Bird spins around Adrian. What a move.
They came out and they played like gangbusters. They were nailing every shot. And for the first time in that series, I didn't think we were really challenging shots. We talked about it at halftime. Defensively, our work ethic wasn't there. And we talked about, hey, if you want to get back in this game, you can't do it on the offensive end. You've got to do it on the defensive end.
The Celtics' lead extended to as many as 16 points, yet Detroit refused to quit. They pressed flesh against flesh and gradually turned up the heat. Fast breaks were held in check. Passing routes were closed down, and inside shots came with a heavy price tag. Bird was handcuffed with a 6 for 20 evening, and more outstanding was the shutout pitched against Danny Ainge. He was left clueless by the end of the third quarter.
Isaiah taps it away from Ainge. Rodman to Isaiah just before the horn he hits.
That was probably as intense a defensive effort as I've ever been involved with on any level, at any time, in any place. Our guys were absolutely incredible in that second half, and it was, for us, it was a joy to behold.
No matter what they tried, Boston simply couldn't break Detroit's rhythm. Steadily, the Pistons climbed back into contention and kept putting the pedal to the metal.
Did he fly to the hole or what?
Bench strength was overwhelming in Detroit's favor. They outscored their counterparts 52-19. The Celtics' 16-point lead was completely erased, and a foul-troubled squad had difficulty keeping pace.
Dumars picking and rolling with Lambeer against Bird and Ainge. Nice. They got the switch. Lamb inside on Ainge. Nice. Ainge gets help, but Billy makes anyway and draws the foul.
In the closing seconds of regulation, Dennis Johnson knocked in an off-balance shot, sending the game into overtime. But DJ's subsequent pain was symbolic of the Celtics' state of mind. They were pounded into submission, and again, AD made them cry uncle. The 119-115 victory was a dream come true to vindicate last year's nightmarish loss.
The Pistons grab Game 5, and they grab the home court advantage back from the Boston Celtics.
The door to the finals was open, and Detroit looked to keep Boston out.
We had pressure on us to beat Boston because last year we should have been in the finals. If we hadn't accomplished that this year by beating them, it would have been a disappointing season for us.
With so much on the line in Game 6, both teams looked to their best post-up players. Dantley for Detroit and Kevin McHale for the Celtics. McHale's added incentive was to ensure that retiring K.C. Jones would not see his final game played on enemy turf. Boston grabbed the early lead, but the Pistons had other ideas about when and where the Celtics coach would have his last hurrah. Injuries would lead Boston to their ultimate demise. A sprained knee forced Parrish out for the final 3 quarters, and Boston saw the handwriting on the wall. More than ever, the Celtics' weak bench could not contain the surging Pistons. Most prominent was Vinnie Johnson, who found his rhythm early and often.
I felt like my shot has been really on since the playoffs started, and once the playoffs started, the bigger the game, the more hyped I am, the more ready I am to play.
Vinnie was too quick, too strong, too focused for Boston to keep pace. The microwave seemed to flip a switch and then burn Boston for 24 points. For the 9th time during the playoffs, Detroit had a 4th quarter lead and never gave it up. After a year of hard work, the Pistons finally conquered Boston, ending the Celtics' dominance in the East. Eliminated from competition, the Celtics offered solidarity with the Pistons against their next opponent. On the horizon were the Western Conference champion Lakers, the final obstacle before an NBA title. Even Chuck Daly had to be impressed by Detroit's opening game cool. Their catalyst was a red-hot Adrian Dantley, 10 years removed from his days in L.A. The offensive flow was routine, but the execution was perfect. L.A. was caught flat-footed each time down the court, and in a flash, they were 8 points in the hole.
They're cornered, let's go! Only one shot, baby, one shot!
Detroit successfully beat L.A. at their own game, outletting to a streaking man on the wing and then hitting an open trailer. The Pistons were electric in building an 11-point lead. But in the first half's closing seconds, they looked to squeeze out a few more sparks. 7 seconds left. Isaiah to Lampier in the corner. His long gun goes for 3. Kareem will inbound it. Isaiah steals the ball. Sideline left, triple try. It's down. The Pistons lead them by 17 at the half. Unflustered, the Lakers pooled their veteran experience and stormed out of the box in the third quarter. Their strategy was to drive to the basket and pick up fouls along the way, and they were near perfect at the free throw line.
Let's go. Gotta get stops. Gotta cover the backcourt. Gotta cover the backcourt. Gotta get on the offensive board. All right, let's get our mindset back now. Get our mindset back. Come on. All business here. Somebody do it. Come on, all business.
Not surprisingly, it was defense that put the Pistons back on track. Leading the way was Dennis Rodman, who played like the Sultan of SWAT. Joining him was John Sally, who smothered Byron Scott's best effort. In all, the Pistons snuffed L.A. 6 times, including moments when the Lakers believed they had a guaranteed 2 points on the board. On the flip side, the Lakers couldn't shut down A.D., who pumped in an incredible 14 of 16 shots. Detroit's bench outdueled the LA subs by a 28-point margin, making the Lakers starters look like 5 easy pieces and exasperated losers in the opening game. When Game 2 racked into focus, the real cameras painted a stirring portrait of contrasts. Piston confidence and Laker concern met at midcourt, reflecting the gravity of a sweep in the Forum. But LA was not about to leave town without showing why those championship banners loom overhead. With grace and sleight of hand, the Lakers showed the style that had already won 4 titles during the 80s.
Hey, you're not going to win it offensively. You've got to get to work everybody defensively. That's what I'm looking at. I got to have the defense.
2 years ago, Daly's men gave up 122 points per playoff game. But in 1988, they reduced that figure to a paltry 95. This defensive excellence also did wonders for the Pistons' transition game. The Lakers had to question their reputed edge in the fast break when Rick Mahorn filled the lane in tallying his most productive game of the finals. Detroit came back from a 12-point deficit, but Magic's fourth-quarter running hook reclaimed a slight Laker cushion. Kareem's version, however, missed the mark and positioned Rodman for a breakaway. Yet Abdul-Jabbar's attempt grazed the rim and entitled L.A. to a fresh shot clock and the ball out of bounds. Instead of a possible 3-point margin, a pair of Magic free throws pumped the Laker lead up to 7, crushing the opportunity for a sweep in the Forum.
Obviously, we would like to win both of them. We're pretty confident about playing on our own court, especially with the crowd, the way it's really reacting. It's like Piston Mania with 45, 50,000 people whooping it up tremendously. It's going to be a great feeling.
Game 3 was truly a homecoming. as 40,000 backed Detroit, while East Lansing had divided feelings about its favorite son. The big issue was how the Lakers would fare on the road after 2 struggles in Utah and Dallas. Initially, matters were not improving in the Silverdome. Piston hustle tracked down Lakers' speed in a tightly fought first half, but the tide would quickly turn. James Worthy exploded for the first 8 points in the third quarter. Detroit then lost its leaders with a Chuck Daly ejection and a lower back injury to Isaiah, the agonizing, crushing blow in a Piston defeat.
Listen, look inside on the motion. 5 guys step in his own.
Wide open. It's our game here, baby. This is the way we're supposed to play every game. Just like this. Let's go, baby. It's our game right here, baby. Come on now.
Unlike games 2 and 3, Detroit was no longer passive inside and got the ball more often to AD. The defense was in top form, stripping the Lakers for 16 turnovers. In previous series, they choked off Jordan and Bird, and now had to smother another dominant player, Magic Johnson, who must have felt as if he woke up wearing Rodman's clothes. The Laker offense dried up in the Silverdome's 90-degree heat, yet the Pistons knew one way to spell relief. With just 14 LA points in the third quarter, even Magic lost his cool. Johnson retaliated to an earlier incident when rough play sent Isaiah to the ground. Off the court, they're the best of friends, but Isaiah took exception to his mistreatment. In hindsight, this worked to the Pistons' advantage, as LA's only effective player eventually picked up his 4th personal foul. Lost in the fray was Isaiah's ability for sucking up the pain.
Completed by 15. The crowd roaring at the booth. They're on their feet here. 5 seconds to play on the shot clock. As Isaiah gets there with 2 on the clock. Simple slide to the corner. And through for 3.
Detroit's 111-86 shellacking pulled them even at 2 games apiece. And the man who was a possible no-show led Detroit in both assists and rebounds. The Dantley family was there to support AD in the final home game of the season. Noticeably absent was Lynn Thomas, who gave birth the night before Game 5. Isaiah stayed up a full 24 hours to witness the delivery of his son, and the new father sought peace with the rest of the world. Isaiah's understandable fatigue appeared to rub off on his teammates. The defense was a step too slow as the Lakers opened up a 15-2 lead.
We know about your hearts. We were in Boston. Come on. We know that was not too far. We know about
With the offense in idle, the Pistons called upon their spark plug to bring them back. Vinny's shooting touch was not quite in peak form, but he was still at his irrepressible best. His success had a domino effect on Dantley.
Oh, yeah. Money.
With a foul-troubled Worthy on the bench, no Laker could match up.
Oh, yeah, man.
After 12 seasons in the NBA and 2 games away from the title, the teacher was giving a lesson in retribution.
Teacher, Adrian Dantley, just took over. And he said, "You're not going to see me play any better than this." And he was no joke.
By now, fans everywhere knew these bad boys were just plain good. From their gritty warhorse to their exuberant youth, the Pistons were a perfect blend of winning basketball. They were a tough team in a tough town, exhibiting a blue-collar work ethic that made Detroit great. And that dedication was the foundation of a 10-point Piston victory. game away from wearing a championship ring, the season's home finale was the perfect farewell to 10 memorable seasons in the Silverdome.
All those stars, the Gary Shanlin and the McEnroe and Billy Crystal, all those guys up there, they're watching us. Because at night, when they come to the game, we're the stars on the court.
But celebrity standing had no bearing on Game 6. The Pistons knew series momentum was clearly in their favor, and that this was the one contest they had to win. Each team began by stealing a cue from its adversary. The Lakers flexed their muscles, while Detroit looked more like Showtime. Pat Riley was trying to grind the Pistons into the court and went deep into his playbook to thrust LA to a halftime lead. But neither Forum Flash nor the June Heat would wilt the Pistons. A repeat championship looked ill-fated until Detroit's comeback train was abruptly derailed. Isaiah accidentally stepped on another player's foot and badly sprained his right ankle. He writhed on the floor for minutes, but refused to go to the locker room. He insisted on playing, understanding that his leadership was critical for the Pistons. Teammates watched in amazement as Isaiah had to shoot off the wrong foot in order to keep the Pistons' fires burning. Thomas transcended pain in an epic battle of nerve. He gracefully soared to the basket and doggedly busted his tail from end line to end line. Perhaps agony heightened Isaiah's sense of awareness. He was practically flawless in the third quarter, in which his 25 points would set an NBA Finals record. These incredible heroics put Detroit a quarter away from the championship.
It's right here, baby. How bad do you want it? It's our game, baby. Come on, Jimmy. It's ours. It's our championship. How long? How long? 12 minutes worth, baby. Yeah, baby. 12 minutes of history. Come on.
But there is something about Magic Johnson and the fourth quarter that makes it difficult for any team to beat LA. His 11 points down the stretch would have buried most teams, but the Pistons continued to scratch and claw, showing a tenacity that burrowed beneath the Lakers' skin. Even with injury and giving up 8 inches, Isaiah challenged Magic to sink the last of his game-high 42 points. Detroit now had 1 minute and a 3-point cushion to win it all. But Byron Scott had an answer. Kareem followed Scott with 2 free throws, putting LA back up by 1 with 14 seconds left.
Coming off Joe hard, right? You got to be careful here. Joe, hesitate a second in case you have to get back the ball. See, if you get him, you duck in and get the ball, try to get away and score. If not, you'll have Joe floating around the outside.
Both teams prayerfully watched the action unfold. But when Dantley and Thomas collided off the inbounds, the play was out of sync. Mighty Joe managed to shake free, but all 5 Lakers collapsed on his drive and gobbled up the ensuing loose ball. With a championship almost in hand, Detroit had to question its fate, while LA counted its lucky stars. During the regular season, Isaiah would have been sidelined for 3 weeks, and his chances looked grim for Game 7.
I have a lot of faith in my teammates, and I know they'll be able to go out and carry on the job and fulfill the task that's at hand.
But this was the most important game in Piston history.
Our championship, let's go.
Isaiah's unexpected presence was again an inspiration to teammates. Thomas fought back the pain to guide the Pistons to a halftime lead. But few can escape the Lakers' third quarter fury in the Forum. Behind Worthy's MVP caliber performance, Detroit found itself down 15 points with less than a quarter remaining.
Listen, hey, Sally's got Worthy now, right? All right. Basically, we're staying home. Next guy, faking him, stay home. Get your hand up, smack the next one back in his face, okay? Come on.
Although the Pistons' chances looked slim, they refused to quit. Detroit pared the Lakers' lead down to 10 and then to 5 by selectively attacking the Laker defense. The lead soon dwindled to just 2, and even red-hot James Worthy was denied access in the middle. Detroit staged an unbelievable 13-point comeback and looked to tie the game with a minute remaining. But like Game 6, the Pistons' critical play was just off the mark, and LA realized its dream of back-to-back championships. A year ago, the Pistons were denied a chance at the finals. Now they've reached the threshold of basketball's ultimate reward, and tomorrow's dreams look brighter than ever.
Now, we're respected as a basketball team. People respect our talents, and they respect how hard we work now. And you know, there's a certain mindset being created now by the Detroit Pistons that people look at Detroit and say, this is how this team plays. And if you're gonna beat this team, you're gonna have to beat them at their style of game, and which is very difficult to do.